My long two-pointed ladders sticking through a tree toward heaven still, and there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it, and there may be 2 or 3 apples that I did not pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night, the scent of apples I am drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted, and I let it fall and break, but I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, with every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruits to touch, cherish in hand, lift down and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap as of no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep. Whose woods these are? I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Out walking in the frozen swamp one gray day, I paused and said, I will turn back from here. No, I will go on farther and we shall see. The hard snow held me, save where now and then one foot went through. The view was all in lines, straight up and down, of tall, slim trees, too much alike to mark or name a place by, so as to say for certain, I was here or somewhere else. I was just far from home. A small bird flew before me. He was careful to put a tree between us when he lighted, and say no word to tell me who he was so foolish as to think what he thought. He thought that I was after him for a feather, the white one in his tail, like one who takes everything said as personal to himself. One flight out sideways would have undeceived him. And then there was a pile of wood, for which I forgot him, and let his little fear carry him off the way I might have gone, without so much as wishing him good night. He went behind it to make his last stand. It was a cord of maple, cut and split and piled, and measured 4 by 4 by 8, and not another like it could I see. No runner's tracks in this year's snow looped near it, and it was older sure than this year's cutting, or even last year's or the years before. The wood was gray, and the bark warping off it, and the pile somewhat sunken. Clematis had wound strings round and round it like a bundle, What held it, though, on one side was a tree still growing, and on one a stake and a prop, these latter about to fall. I thought that only someone who lived in turning to fresh tasks could so forget his handiwork on which he spent himself, the labor of his axe, and leave it there far from a useful fireplace to warm the frozen swamp as best it could with the slow, smokeless burning of decay. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step but trodden black. I kept the first for another day, yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen groundswell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left not one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. The gaps, I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made. But at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet, to walk the line, and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each. And some are loaves and some so nearly balls, we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine, and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbors? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I built a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offense. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he say it for himself. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage, armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only in the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying. And he likes having thought of it so well, he says again, good fences make good neighbors. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat, and dropped my eyes unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. When I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay. Ice storms do that. Often you must have seen them, loaded with ice, a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises, and turn many-colored as the stir cracks and crazes their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust, such heaps of broken glass to sweep away you'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed so low for long, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter-of-fact about the ice storm, now am I free to be poetical? I should prefer to have some boy bend them as he went out and in to fetch the cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself, summer or winter, and could play alone. One by one he subdued his father's trees by riding them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one but hung limp. Not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon, and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. He always kept his poise to the top branches, climbing carefully with the same pains you use to fill a cup up to the brim, and even above the brim. Then he flung outward, feet first, with a swish, kicking his way down through the air to the ground. So was I once myself a swinger of birches, and so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations, and life is too much like a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig's having lashed across it open. I'd like to get away from earth a while, and then come back to it and begin over. May no fate willfully misunderstand me, and half grant what I wish, and snatch me away not to return. Earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree, and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven, till the tree could bear no more, but dipped its top and set me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. Back, out of all this now too much for us. Back in a time made simple by the loss of detail, burned, dissolved, and broken off like graveyard marble sculpture in the weather. There is a house that is no more a house, upon a farm that is no more a farm, and in a town that is no more a town. The road there, if you'll let a guide direct you who only has at heart your getting lost, may seem as if it should have been a quarry. Great monolithic knees the former town long since gave up pretense of keeping covered. And there's a story in a book about it. Besides the wear of iron wagon wheels, the ledges show lines ruled southeast-northwest, the chisel work of an enormous glacier that braced his feet against the Arctic pole. You must not mind a certain coolness from him still said to haunt this side of Panther Mountain. Nor need you mind the serial ordeal of being watched from 40 cellar holes as if by eye pairs out of 40 firkins. As for the wood's excitement over you that sends light rustle rushes to their leaves, charge that to upstart inexperience. Where were they all not 20 years ago? They think too much of having shaded out a few old pecker-fretted apple trees. Make yourself up a cheering song of how someone's road home from work this once was, who may be just ahead of you on foot or creaking with a buggy load of grain. The height of the adventure is the height of country where two village cultures faded into each other. Both of them are lost. And if you're lost enough to find yourself by now, pull in your ladder road behind you and put a sign up, closed to all but me. Then, make yourself at home. The only field now left's no bigger than a harness gall. First, there's the children's house of make-believe, some shattered dishes underneath a pine, the playthings in the playhouse of the children. Weep for what little things could make them glad. Then for the house that is no more a house, but only a belilacked cellar hole now closing like a dent in dough. This was no playhouse, but a house in earnest. Your destination, and your destinies, a brook that was the water of the house, cold as a spring, as yet so near its source, too lofty and original to rage. We know the valley streams that, when aroused, will leave their tatters hung on barb and thorn. I have kept hidden in the instep arch of an old cedar at the waterside a broken drinking goblet like the Grail, under a spell, so the wrong ones can't find it, so can't get saved, as St. Mark says they mustn't. I stole the goblet from the children's playhouse. Here are your waters and your watering place. Drink and be whole again, beyond confusion. I found a dimpled spider, fat and white, on a white heel awl holding up a moth like a white piece of rigid satin cloth. Assorted characters of death and blight, mixed, ready to begin the morning rite, like the ingredients of a witch's broth, a snowdrop spider, a flower like froth, and dead wings carried like a paper kite. What had that flower to do with being white? The wayside blue and innocent heel-all? What brought the kindred spider to that height, then steered the white moth thither in the night? What but the design of darkness to appall, if design govern in a thing so small? Others taunt me with having knelt at well curbs always wrong to the light, so never seeing deeper down in the well than where the water gives me back in a shining surface picture, me myself, in the summer heaven godlike, looking out of a wreath of fern and cloud puffs. Once, when trying with chin against a well curb, I discerned, as I thought, beyond the picture, through the picture, a something white, uncertain, something more of the depths, and then I lost it. Water came to rebuke the too clear water. One drop fell from a fern and lo, a ripple shook whatever it was lay there at bottom, blurred it, blotted it out. What was that whiteness? Truth? A pebble of quartz? For once, then, something. A saturated meadow, sun-shaped and jewel-small. A circle scarcely wider than the trees around were tall, where winds were excluded and the air was sweet with the breath of flowers. A temple of the heat. There we bowed us in the burning, as the sun's right worship is, to pick where none could miss them 1,000 orchids. For though the grass was scattered, yet every second spear seemed tipped with wings of color that tinged the atmosphere. We raised a simple prayer before we left, that in the general mowing that place might be forgot, or if not also favored, obtain such grace of ours that none should mow the grass there while so confused with flowers. There was never a sound beside the wood but one, and that was my long scythe whispering to the ground. What was it whispered? I knew not well myself. Perhaps it was something about the heat of the sun, something perhaps about the lack of sound, and that was why it whispered and did not speak. It was no dream of the gift of idle hours or easy gold. Anything more than the truth would have seemed too weak to the earnest love that laid the swale in rows, not without feeble-pointed spikes of flowers, and scared a bright green snake. The fact is the sweetest dream that labor knows. My long scythe whispered and left the hay to make. One of my wishes is that those dark trees, so old and firm they scarcely show the breeze, were not, as it were, the merest mask of gloom, but stretched away unto the edge of doom. I should not be withheld, but that some day into their vastness I should steal away, fearless of ever finding open land or highway where the slow wheel pours the sand. I do not see why I should ever turn back, or those should not set forth upon my track to overtake me, who should miss me here, and long to know if still I held them dear. They would not find me changed from him they knew, only more sure of all I thought was true. Out, through the fields and the woods and over the walls I have wended. I have climbed the hills of view and looked at the world and descended. I have come by the highway home, and lo, it is ended. The leaves are all dead on the ground, save those that the oak is keeping, to ravel them one by one, and let them go scraping and creeping out over the crusted snow, when others are sleeping. And the dead leaves lie huddled and still, no longer blown hither and thither. The last lone aster is gone. The flowers of the witch hazel wither. The heart is still aching to seek, but the feet question, whither? When to the heart of man was it ever less than a treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with a grace to reason, and bow and accept the end of a love or a season? There is a singer everyone has heard, loud, a midsummer and a midwood bird, who makes the solid tree trunks sound again. He says that leaves are old, and that for flowers, midsummer is to spring as 1 to 10. He says the early petal fall is past, when pear and cherry bloom went down in showers on sunny days a moment overcast. And comes that other fall we name the fall. He says the highway dust is over all. The bird would cease and be as other birds, but that he knows in singing not to sing. The question that he frames in all but words is what to make of a diminished thing. By June, our brooks run out of song and speed. Sought for much after that, it will be found either to have gone groping underground and taken with it all the hyla breed that shouted in the mist a month ago like ghost of sleigh bells and a ghost of snow, or flourished and come up in jewel weed, weak foliage that is blown upon and bent even against the way its waters went. Its bed is left a faded paper sheet of dead leaves stuck together by the heat. A brook to none, but who remember long. This, as it will be seen, is other far than with brooks taken otherwhere in song. We love the things we love for what they are. The house had gone to bring again to the midnight sky a sunset glow. Now the chimney was all of the house that stood, like a pistol after the petals go. The barn posed across the way that would have joined the house in flame had it been the will of the wind, was left to bear forsaken the place's name. No more it opened with all one end for teams that came by the stony road to drum on the floor with scurrying hoofs and brush the mow with the summer load. The birds that came to it through the air at broken windows flew out and in. Their murmur more like the sigh we sigh from too much dwelling on what has been. Yet for them, the lilac renews its leaf, and the aged elm, though touched with fire, and the dry pump flung up an awkward arm, and the fence post carried a strand of wire. But for them there was really nothing sad. But though they rejoiced in the nest they kept, one had to be versed in country things not to believe the Phoebes wept. Mary sat musing on the lamp flame at the table, waiting for Warren. When she heard his step, she ran on tiptoe down the darkened passage to meet him in the doorway with the news and put him on his guard. Silas is back. She pushed him outward with her through the door and shut it after her. Be kind, she said. She took the market things from Warren's arms and set them on the porch, then drew him down to sit beside her on the wooden steps. Was I ever anything but kind to him? But I'll not have the fellow back, he said. I told him so last hang, didn't I? If he left then, I said, that ended it. What good is he? Who else will harbor him at his age for the little he can do? What help he is there's no depending on. Off he goes always when I need him most. He thinks he ought to earn a little pay, enough at least to buy tobacco with. so he won't have to beg and be beholden. All right, I say. I can't afford to pay any fixed wages, though I wish I could. Someone else can. Then someone else will have to. I shouldn't mind his bettering himself if that was what it was. You can be certain when he begins like that, there's someone at him, trying to coax him off with pocket money. In hang time, when any help is scarce, in winter he comes back to us, I'm done. Shh, not so loud. He'll hear you, Mary said. I want him to. He'll have to sooner or late. He's worn out. He's asleep beside the stove. When I came up from Rose, I found him here, huddled against the barn door, fast asleep. A miserable sight, and frightening too. You needn't smile. I didn't recognize him. I wasn't looking for him. And he's changed. Wait till you see. Where'd you say he'd been? He didn't say. I dragged him to the house and gave him tea and tried to make him smoke. I tried to make him talk about his travels. Nothing would do. He just kept nodding off. What did he say? Did he say anything? But little. Anything? Mary, confess. He said he'd come to ditch the meadow for me. Warren. But did he? I just want to know. Of course he did. What would you have him say? Surely he wouldn't grudge the poor old man some humble way to save his self-respect. He added, if you really care to know, he meant to clear the upper pasture too. That sounds like something you have heard before. Warren, I wish you could have heard the way he jumbled everything. I stopped to look 2 or 3 times. He made me feel so queer. To see if he was talking in his sleep. He ran on Harold Wilson, you remember, the boy you had in hang 4 years since. He's finished school and teaching in his college. Silas declares you'll have to get him back. He says they two will make a team for work. Between them, they will lay this farm as smooth. The way he mixed that in with other things, he thinks young Wilson a likely lad, though daft on education. You know how they fought all through July under the blazing sun. Silas up on the cart to build the load, Harold along beside to pitch it on. Yes, I took care to keep well out of earshot. Well, those days trouble Silas, like a dream. You wouldn't think they would, how some things linger. Harold's young college boy's assurance piqued him. After so many years, he still keeps finding good arguments he sees he might have used. I sympathize. I know just how it feels to think of the right thing to say too late. Harold's associated in his mind with Latin. He asked me what I thought of Harold saying he studied Latin like the violin because he liked it. That an argument. He said he couldn't make the boy believe he could find water with a hazel prong, which showed how much good school had ever done him. He wanted to go over that. But most of all, he thinks if he could have another chance to teach him how to build a load of hay. I know, that's Silas's one accomplishment. He bundles every forkful in its place and tags and numbers it for future reference so he can find and easily dislodge it in the unloading. Well, Silas does that well. He takes it out in big bunches, like birds' nests. You never see him standing on the hay straining to lift himself. He thinks if he could teach him that, he'd be some good perhaps to someone in the world. He hates to see a boy the fool of books. Poor Silas. So concerned with other folk, and nothing to look backward to with pride, and nothing to look forward to with hope. So now and never any different. Part of a moon was falling down the west, dragging the whole sky with it to the hills. Its light poured softly in her lap. She saw and spread her apron to it. She put out her hand among the harp-like morning glory strings, taut with the dew from garden bed to eaves, as if she played unheard the tenderness that wrought on him beside her in the night. Warren, she said, he has come home to die. You needn't be afraid he'll leave you this time. Home, he mocked gently. Yes, what else but home? It all depends on what you mean by home. Of course, he's nothing to us any more than was the hound that came a stranger to us out of the woods, worn out upon the trail. Home is the place where, when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I should have called it something you somehow haven't to deserve. Warren leaned out and took a step or two, picked up a little stick and brought it back and broke it in his hand and tossed it by. Silas has better claim on us, you think, than on his brother? 13 little miles as the road winds would bring him to his door. Silas has walked that far, no doubt, today. Why didn't he go there? His brother's rich, a somebody, a director in the bank. He never told us that. We know it, though. I think his brother ought to help, of course. I'll see to that if there is need. He ought of right to take him in, and might be willing to. He may be better than appearances. But have some pity on Silas. Do you think if he'd had any pride in claiming kin or anything he looked for from his brother, he'd keep so still about him all the time? I wonder what's between them. I can tell you. Silas is what he is. We wouldn't mind him, but just the kind that kinsfolk can't abide. He never did a thing so very bad. You don't know why he isn't quite as good as anyone. He won't be made ashamed to please his brother, worthless though he is. I can't think Si ever hurt anyone. No, but he hurt my heart the way he lay and rolled his old head on that sharp-edged chair back. He wouldn't let me put him in the lounge. You must go in and see what you can do. I made the bed up for him there tonight. You'll be surprised at him, how much he's broken. His working days are done, I'm sure of it. I'd not be in a hurry to say that. I haven't been. Go, look, see for yourself. But Warren, please, remember how it is. He's come to help you ditch the meadow. He has a plan. You mustn't laugh at him. He may not speak of it, and then he may. I'll sit and see if that small sailing cloud will hit or miss the moon. It hit the moon. Then there were three, making a dim row, the moon, the little silver cloud, and she. Warren returned, too soon it seemed to her, slipped to her side, caught up her hand and waited. Warren? She questioned. Dead, was all he answered. The mountain held the town, as in a shadow. I saw so much before I slept there once. I noticed that I missed stars in the west, where its black body cut into the sky. Near me, it seemed, I felt it like a wall behind which I was sheltered from a wind. And yet between the town and it, I found, when I walked forth at dawn to see new things, were fields, a river, and beyond, more fields. The river, at the time, was fallen away and made a widespread brawl on cobblestones, but the signs showed what it had done in spring. Good grassland gullied out, and in the grass, ridges of sand and driftwood stripped of bark. I crossed the river and swung round the mountain. And there I met a man who moved so slow with white-faced oxen in a heavy cart it seemed no harm to stop him altogether. What town is this? I asked. This? Lunenburg. Then I was wrong. The town of my sojourn beyond the bridge was not that of the mountain, but only felt at night its shadowy presence. Where is your village? Very far from here? There is no village, only scattered farms. We were but 60 voters last election. We can't in nature grow to many more. That thing takes all the room. He moved his goad. The mountain stood there to be pointed at. Pasture ran up the side a little way, And then there was a wall of trees with trunks. After that, only tops of trees and cliffs imperfectly concealed among the leaves. A dry ravine emerged from under boughs into the pasture. That looks like a path. Is that the way to reach the top from here? Not for the morning, but some other time. I must be getting back to breakfast now. I don't advise your trying from this side. There is no proper path. But those that have been up, I understand, have climbed from Lads. That's 5 miles back. You can't mistake the place. They logged it there last winter, some way up. I'd take you, but I'm bound the other way. You never climbed it? I've been on the sides deer hunting and trout fishing. There's a brook that starts up on it somewhere. I've heard say right on the top, tip-top, a curious thing. But what would interest you about the brook? It's always cold in summer, warm in winter. One of the great sights going is to see it steam in winter like an ox's breath, until the bushes all along its banks are inch deep with the frosty spines and bristles. You know the kind, and let the sun shine on it. There ought to be a view around the world from such a mountain, if it isn't wooded clear to the top. I saw through leafy screens great granite terraces in sun and shadow, shelves one could rest a knee on getting up, with depths behind him sheer 100 feet, or turn and sit on and look out and down with little ferns and crevices at his elbow. As to that I can't say, but there's the spring right on the summit, almost like a fountain. That ought to be worth seeing. Well, if it's there, you never saw it? I guess there's no doubt about its being there. I never saw it. It may not be right on the very top. It wouldn't have to be a long way down to have some head of water from above. And a good distance down might not be noticed by anyone who'd come a long way up. One time I asked a fellow climbing it to look and tell me later how it was. What did he say? He said there was a lake. He was somewhere in Ireland on a mountaintop. But a lake's different. What about the spring? He never got up high enough to see. That's why I don't advise your trying this side. He tried this side. I've always meant to go and look myself, but you know how it is. It doesn't seem so much to climb a mountain you've worked around the foot of all your life. What would I do? Go in my overalls with a big stick, the same as when the cows haven't come down to the bars at milking time? Or with a shotgun for a stray black bear? It wouldn't seem real to climb for climbing it. I shouldn't climb it if I didn't want to. Not for the sake of climbing. What's its name? We call it Hor. I don't know if that's right. Can one walk around it? Would it be too far? You can drive round and keep in Lunenburg, but it's as much as you can ever do. The boundary lines keep in so close to it. Hor is the township, and the township's Hor, and a few houses sprinkled round the foot, like boulders broken off the upper cliff, rolled out a little farther than the rest. Warm in December, cold in June, you say? I don't suppose the water's changed at all. You and I know enough to know it's warm compared with cold, and cold compared with warm. But all the fun's in how you say a thing. You've lived here all your life? Ever since Hor was no bigger than... What? I did not hear. He drew the oxen toward him with light touches of his slim goad on nose and offside flank, gave them their marching orders, and was moving. I had, for my winter evening walk, no one at all with whom to talk. But I had the cottages in a row, up to their shining eyes in snow. And I thought I had the folk within. I had the sound of a violin. I had a glimpse through curtain laces of youthful forms and youthful faces. I had such company outward bound. I went till there were no cottages found. I turned and repented, but coming back I saw no window, but that was black. Over the snow, my creaking feet disturbed the slumbering village street like profanation. By your leave, at 10 o'clock of a winter eve. I let myself in at the kitchen door. "Ah, it's you," she said. "I can't get up. Forgive me for not answering your knock. I can no more let people in than I can keep them out. I'm getting too old for my size, I tell them. My fingers are about all I've the use of, so's to take any comfort. I can sew. I help out with this beadwork what I can." "That's a smart pair of pumps you're beading there. Who were they for?" "You mean, for some miss. I can't keep track of other people's daughters. Lord, if I were to dream of everyone whose shoes I primped to dance in." "And where's John?" "Haven't you seen him? Strange what set you off to come to this house when he's gone to yours. You can't have passed each other. I know what. He must have changed his mind and gone to Garland's. He won't be long in that case. You can wait. Though what good you can be, or anyone. It's gone so far. You've heard? Estelle's run off." "Oh, yes. What's it all about? When did she go?" 2 weeks since. "She's in earnest, it appears." "I'm sure she won't come back. She's hiding somewhere. I don't know where myself. John thinks I do. He thinks I only have to say the word and she'll come back. But bless you, I'm her mother. I can't talk to her, and Lord, if I could." "It will go hard with John. What will he do? He can't find anyone to take her place." If you ask me that, what will he do? He gets some sort of bake shop meals together with me to sit and tell him everything, what's wanted and how much and where it is. But when I'm gone, of course I can't stay here. Estelle's to take me when she's settled down. He and I only hinder one another. I tell them they can't get me through the door, though. I've been built in here like a big church organ. We've been here 15 years. That's a long time to live together and then pull apart. How do you see him living when you're gone? 2 of you out will leave an empty house. I don't see him living many years, left here with nothing but the furniture. I hate to think of the old place when we're gone, with the brook going by below the yard, and no one here but the hens blowing about. If he could sell the place, but then he can't. No one will ever live on it again. It's too run down. This is the last of it. What I think he will do is let things smash. I'll sort of swear the time away. He's awful. I never saw a man let family troubles make so much difference in his man's affairs. He's just dropped everything. He's like a child. I blame him being brought up by his mother. He's got hay down that's been rained on 3 times. He hoed a little yesterday for me. I thought the growing things would do him good. Something went wrong. I saw him throw the hoe sky high with both hands. I can see it now. Come here, I'll show you. In that apple tree. That's no way for a man to do at his age. He's 55, you know, if he's a day. Aren't you afraid of him? What's that gun for? That's been there for Hawk since chicken time. John Hall touch me. Not if he knows his friends. I'll say that for him. John's no threatener like some menfolk. No one's afraid of him. All is, he's made up his mind not to stand what he has got to stand. Where is Estelle? Couldn't one talk to her? What does she say? You say you don't know where she is? Nor want to. She thinks if it was bad to live with him, it must be right to leave him. Which is wrong. Yes, but he should have married her. I know. The strain's been too much for her all these years. I can't explain it any other way. It's different with a man, at least with John. He knows he's kinder than the run of men. Better than married ought to be as good as married. That's what he has always said. I know the way he's felt, but all the same, I wonder why he doesn't marry her and end it. Too late now. She wouldn't have him. He's given her time to think of something else. That's his mistake. The dear knows my interest has been to keep the things from breaking up. This is a good home. I don't ask for better. But when I've said, why shouldn't they be married? He'd say, why should they? No more words than that. And after all, why should they? John's been fair, I take it. What was his was always hers. There was no quarrel about property. Reason enough there was no property. A friend or two as good as own the farm, such as it is. It isn't worth the mortgage. I mean, Estelle has always held the purse. The rights of that are harder to get at. I guess Estelle and I have filled the purse. It was we let him have money, not he us. John's a bad farmer. I'm not blaming him. Take it year in, year out, he doesn't make much. We came here for a home for me, you know. Estelle to do the housework for the board of both of us. But look at how it turns out. She seems to have the housework, and besides, half of the outdoor work. Though as for that, he'd say she does it more because she likes it. You see, our pretty things are all outdoors. Our hens and cows and pigs are always better than folks like us have any business with. Farmers around twice as well off as we haven't as good. They don't go with the farm. One thing you can't help liking about John, he's fond of nice things. Too fond, some would say. But Estelle don't complain. She's like him there. She wants our hens to be the best there are. You never saw this room before a show, full of lank, shivery, half-drowned birds in separate coops, having their plumage done. The smell of the wet feathers in the heat. You spoke of John's not being safe to stay with. You don't know what a gentle lot we are. We wouldn't hurt a hen. You ought to see us moving a flock of hens from place to place. We're not allowed to take them upside down. All we can hold together by the legs. 2 at a time's the rule, 1 on each arm, no matter how far and how many times we have to go. You mean that's John's idea? And we live up to it. Or I don't know what childishness he wouldn't give way to. He manages to keep the upper hand on his own farm. He's the boss. But as to hens, we fence our flowers in, and the hens range. Nothing's too good for them. We say it pays. John likes to tell the offers he has had, 20 for this cock, 25 for that. He never takes the money. If they're worth that much to sell, they're worth as much to keep. Bless you, it's all expense, though. Reach me down the little tin box on the cupboard shelf. The upper shelf, the tin box, that's the one. I'll show you. Here you are. What's this? A bill for $50 for 1 Langshan cock, receipted, and the cock is in the yard. Not in a glass case, then. He'd need a tall one. He can eat off a barrel from the ground. He's been in a glass case, as you might say. The Crystal Palace, London. He's imported. John bought him and we paid the bill with beads. Wampum, I call it. Mind, we don't complain. But you see, don't you, we take care of him. And like it, too. It makes it all the worse. It seems as if, and that's not all. He's helpless in ways that I can hardly tell you of. Sometimes he gets possessed to keep accounts to see where all the money goes so fast. You know how men will be ridiculous. It's just fun the way he gets bedeviled. If he's untidy now, what will he be? It makes it all the worse. You must be blind. Estelle's the one. You needn't talk to me. Can't you and I get to the root of it? What's the real trouble? What will satisfy her? It's as I say, she's turned from him, that's all. Oh, but why? When she's well off? Is it the neighbors being cut off from friends? We have our friends. That isn't it. Folks aren't afraid of us. She's let it worry her. You stood the strain, and you're her mother. But I didn't always. I didn't relish it along at first, but I got wanted to it, and besides, John said I was too old to have grandchildren. But what's the use of talking when it's done? She won't come back. It's worse than that. She can't. Why do you speak like that? What do you know? What do you mean? She's done harm to herself? I mean, she's married. Married to someone else. Oh, ho, ho. You don't believe me? Yes, I do, only too well. I knew there must be something. So that was what was back. She's bad, that's all. Bad to get married when she had the chance? Nonsense. See what she's done? But who? Who'd marry her straight out of such a mess? Say it right out, no matter for her mother. The man was found. I'd better name no names. John himself won't imagine who he is. Then it's all up. I think I'll get away. You'll be expecting John. I pity Estelle. I suppose she deserves some pity too. You ought to have the kitchen to yourself to break it to him. You may have the job. You needn't think you're going to get away. John's almost here. I've had my eye on someone coming down Ryan's Hill. I thought it was him. Here he is now. This box. Put it away. And this bill. What's the hurry? He'll unhitch. No, he won't either. He'll just drop the reins and turn Doll out to pasture, rig and all. She won't get far before the wheels hang up on something. There's no harm. See, there he is. My, but he looks as if he must have heard. John threw the door wide, but he didn't enter. How are you, neighbor? Just the man I'm after. Isn't it hell? He said. I want to know. Come out here if you want to hear me talk. I'll talk to you, old woman, afterward. I've got some news that maybe isn't news. What are they trying to do to me, these two? Do go along with him and stop his shouting. She raised her voice against the closing door. Who wants to hear your news, you dreadful fool? Out of the mud, two strangers came and caught me splitting wood in the yard. And one of them put me off my aim by hailing cheerily, Hit 'em hard. I knew pretty well why he dropped behind and let the other go on a way. I knew pretty well what he had in mind. He wanted to take my job for pay. Good blocks of beech it was I split, as large around as the chopping block, and every piece I squarely hit fell splinterless as a cloven rock. The blows that a life of self-control spares to strike for the common good that day, giving a loose to my soul, I spent on the unimportant wood. The sun was warm, but the wind was chill. You know how it is with an April day. When the sun is out and the wind is still, you're 1 month on in the middle of May. But if you so much as dare to speak, a cloud comes over the sunlit arch, a wind comes off a frozen peak, and you're 2 months back in the middle of March. A bluebird comes tenderly up to alight and fronts to the wind to unruffle a plume, his song so pitched as not to excite a single flower as yet to bloom. It is snowing a flake, and he half knew winter was only playing possum, except in color he isn't blue, but he wouldn't advise a thing to blossom. The water, for which we may have to look in summertime with a witching wand, in every wheel rut's now a brook, in every print of a hoof a pond. Be glad of water, but don't forget the lurking frost in the earth beneath that will steal forth after the sun is set and show on the water its crystal teeth. The time when most I loved my task, these two must make me love it more by coming with what they came to ask. You'd think I never had felt before the weight of an axe head poised aloft, the grip on earth of outspread feet, the life of muscles rocking soft and smooth and moist in vernal heat. Out of the woods, two hulking tramps from sleeping God knows where last night, but not long since in the lumber camps. They thought all chopping was theirs of right, men of the woods and lumberjacks. They judged me by their appropriate tool. Except as a fellow handled an axe, they had no way of knowing a fool. Nothing on either side was said. They knew they had but to stay their stay, and all their logic would fill my head. As that I had no right to play with what was another man's work for gain. My right might be love, but theirs was need. And where the two exist in twain, theirs was the better right. Agreed. but yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation, as my two eyes make one in sight. Only where love and need are one, and the work is play for mortal stakes, is the deed ever really done for heaven and the future's sakes. We chanced, in passing by that afternoon, to catch it in a sort of special picture among tar-banded ancient cherry trees, set well back from the road in rank lodged grass, the little cottage we were speaking of, a front with just a door between two windows, fresh painted by the shower, a velvet black. We paused, the minister and I, to look. He made as if to hold it at arm's length, or put the leaves aside that framed it in. "Pretty," he said. "Come in, no one will care." The path was a vague parting in the grass that led us to a weathered windowsill. We pressed our faces to the pane. "You see," he said, "everything's as she left it when she died. Her sons won't sell the house or the things in it. They say they mean to come in summer here, where they were boys. They haven't come this year. They live so far away, one is out west. It will be hard for them to keep their word. Anyway, they won't have the place disturbed." A buttoned haircloth lounge spread scrolling arms under a crayon portrait on the wall, done sadly from an old daguerreotype. That was the father as he went to war. She always, when she talked about war, sooner or later came and leaned, half knelt, against the lounge beside it, though I doubt if such unlifelike lines kept power to stir anything in her after all the years. He fell at Gettysburg, or Fredericksburg. I ought to know. It makes a difference which. Fredericksburg wasn't Gettysburg, of course. But what I'm getting to is how forsaken a little cottage this has always seemed, since she went more than ever. But before, I don't mean altogether by the lives that had gone out of it, the father first, then the two sons, till she was left alone. Nothing could draw her after those two sons. She valued the considerate neglect she had at some cost taught them after years. I mean, by the world's having passed it by, as we almost got by this afternoon. It always seems to me a sort of mark to measure how far 50 years have brought us. Why not sit down if you are in no haste? These doorsteps seldom have a visitor. The warping boards pull out their own old nails with none to tread and put them in their place. She had her own idea of things, the old lady, and she liked talk. She had seen Garrison and Whittier, and had her story of them. One wasn't long in learning that she thought whatever else the Civil War was for, it wasn't just to keep the states together, nor just to free the slaves, though it did both. She wouldn't have believed those ends enough to have given outright for them all she gave. Her giving somehow touched the principle that all men are created free and equal, and to hear her quaint phrases, so removed from the world's view today of all those things, that's a hard mystery of Jefferson's. What did he mean? Of course, the easy way is to decide it simply isn't true. May not be. I heard a fellow say so, but never mind. The Welshman got it planted where it will trouble us 1,000 years. Each age will have to reconsider it. You couldn't tell her what the West was saying and what the South, to her serene belief. She had some art of hearing and yet not hearing the latter wisdom of the world. White was the only race she ever knew. Black she had scarcely seen, and yellow never. But how could they be made so very unlike by the same hand working in the same stuff? She had supposed the war decided that. What are you going to do with such a person? Strange how such innocence gets its own way. I shouldn't be surprised if, in this world, it were the force that would at last prevail. Do you know, but for her, there was a time when, to please younger members of the church, or rather say non-members in the church, whom we all have to think of nowadays, I would have changed the creed a very little. Not that she had to ask me not to. It never got so far as that. But the bare thought of her old tremulous bonnet in the pew and of her half asleep was too much for me. Why, I might wake her up and startle her. It was the words "descended into Hades" that seemed too pagan to our liberal youth. You know they suffered from a general onslaught. And well, if they weren't true, why keep right on saying them like the heathen? We could drop them. Only there was the bonnet in the pew. Such a phrase couldn't have meant much to her, but suppose she had missed it from the creed, as a child misses the unsaid good night and falls asleep with heartache. How should I feel? I'm just as glad she made me keep bands off, for, dear me, why abandon a belief merely because it ceases to be true? Cling to it long enough and knot it out. It will turn true again, for so it goes. Most of the change we think we see in life is due to truths being in and out of favor. As I sit here, and oftentimes, I wish I could be a monarch of a desert land I could devote and dedicate forever to the truths we keep coming back and back to. So desert it would have to be, so walled by mountain ranges, half in summer snow, no one would covet it or think it worth the pains of conquering to force change on. Scattered oases where men dwelt, but mostly sand dunes held loosely in tamarisk, blown over and over themselves in idleness. Sand grains should sugar in the natal dew the babe born to the desert, the sand storm retard mid-waste my cowering caravans. There are bees in this wall. He struck the clapboards. Fierce heads looked out. Small bodies pivoted. We rose to go. Sunset blazed on the windows.
Bah. Like, subscribe, notification bell, join the herd.